Good evening YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you an update to my Fallen of Albaz Despia profile. Now, just before we get started, I'm just going to mention that this is not the Dogmatica version, this is actually an update to my Go Second version, but there are different variations for this deck, and I think they all have their massive bonuses. With the Dogmatica engine, you can easily side that in as a guarantee when you're going first. You also have the Shadow version, which I think has a lot of great synergy within the deck as well. With all of that out of the way, I'm going to take you through the update of the profile and explain everything we've got as we go. So, we start off with the main deck, and we are starting with triple Fallen of Albaz. Now, this has become a lot cheaper and easier for you guys to pick up now that the tins have been released. So I definitely advise picking him up. He might get another reprint, or he should get another reprint in March when we do get the Fallen of Albaz structure deck. But if you want to be playing any deck that involves Fallen of Albaz specifically, now is a great time to be picking them up and doing so. We've then got triple Alba, the Jester of Despia. Now, this is actually fallen in price as well. He's only sitting at around about £25 to £30 a card. Now, I know that might seem a lot, so if you can only get to 2, that is absolutely fine as well. But he is your go-getter. He is the one you want to be normal summoning more times than not. And you also have the ability of bringing him back from the graveyard to trigger his effect. He now has even more targets to search. So you'll be searching stuff like Branded in Red, which is an absolute colossal card for what it does. And of course the field spell. So he's constantly your utility card to get you into your fusion like summon plays, which is awesome. We've then got triple Tragedy. Now, this card again is such a good card and utility card for the deck specifically for the pure fact that it's any time it is either sent to the graveyard or banished from anywhere, you trigger its effect to add you a Despia monster. And again, this has more utility. Because you're going to be fusion summoning a lot, it can actually search you the new add, or it can also search you the dramaturge. So both of those cards are going to float, which constantly means you're gaining back some of your fusion materials, which is awesome. And then it can get you into an Alba should you not already have him in hand. We've then got 2 Dramaturge of Despia. So this is the boss monster that if it is used as fusion material, it can come back to the board, and it's a 3k beta and a level 8, so it does have additional utilities being those particular kind of stats as well. Incredibly good card, incredibly powerful. I think 3 would be too much because you kind of get to it when you want it. And if you open it, as long as you've got the ability to fuse with it, you're fine. But if you open this up without a way of getting to a fusion card, then you are in a bit of trouble. But you should be able to do that more times than not. We've then got the 1 Ableton of Despia. So this is the brand new card, and it's during the main phase. You can make all monsters currently on the field gain attack equal to their levels times 100 until the end of the turn. End of your opponent's turn specifically. What makes it better is if this card in the hand or field is used as fusion material and sent to the graveyard or banished, you can target 1 Despia monster or level 8 or higher fusion monster that is banished or in the graveyard, except himself, and special summon it. You can only use each effect once per turn. So the idea behind this is using him as material, it lets you bring back another one. So for example, if you were to use these 2 as materials, they both, well, not both of them get to come back. If you use these 2 plus, let's say, Tragedy, then Tragedy and Drama would come back. The idea that if you're making First of the Dark Lords, you basically get all 3 of your materials back if you were to use these. And even if you don't, and you use, for example, these 3, you're going to get 2 of your materials back. So I think it's the one thing to make a successful fusion, to make it a successful ritual. You need to be looking at cards, and this is what makes them so good, is cards that either cut out the necessity of having the materials in hand or field, or give you the ability of regaining your materials. Because when you think about it, a fusion summon or a ritual summon, using these as an example, they require the fusion spell, the fusion materials, or the ritual materials, and then they get you into the monster. Whereas that's 3 materials required to conduct a single summon. Whereas if you then have the ability of, right, okay, well, we're going to reward you for having these 3 consistent parts, or in the ritual sense, they let you use stuff from deck or grave or anything like that. So in the fusion sense, they're basically saying, okay, unlike Shaddoll Fusion that basically says, if you have this fusion spell, you can use materials from the deck, this is saying, well, if you use materials, you can have those materials back. So when you're playing a deck like this that has so many different ways of fusion summoning, you're kind of looking for multiple ways of getting your materials back so you can just use them again. Then, because we want to be as competitive as possible, we are playing the Destiny Hero engine. So we've got the one Celestial, the one Dasher. Now, what makes these really good as well is that there are a couple of cards that let you use them in the grave. They let you use them from the hand as well, so you don't just need to rely on using them from the deck. And what makes this better than Red Eyes Fusion is that you don't need to go into Verte to activate your Fusion Destiny. You can literally just go, cool, do all of my Fusion Summon plays, then activate Fusion Destiny, and that's going to give me my big boss monster out. And that boss monster, when it's backed up by Tax Dragon, my opponent's constantly going to keep burning, and then this boss monster can just run away and come back when it chooses. Not to mention, if your hand is empty, Celestial will give you a draw the next turn, and Dasher during the draw phase will let you summon a monster if you draw it. So again, if you're looking at playing anything, so if you drew into an ad or a drama, Dasher could then trigger to summon these down, and it just gives you a free boss monster on board. So if you don't have this engine, don't worry. That is where the Dogmatica package comes in. It's also where stuff like hand traps can come into play, as well as alternative engines for the deck. So you're not absolutely stuck to play this. This is just, if you want to have another competitive edge, then you go with this. If you want to go for a cheaper alternative, this 5-card engine can be a very small invoked package, because you can then start adding more lights into the deck, and that's where you get your Macabre set up from a single normal summon, and then you get to play further from that point on. Alternatively, like I said, this can be the Dogmatica package. At the very minimum, it could be 3 Nadir Servant, 1 Ecclesia, and then a Maximus. It is entirely up to you on the routes you want to play. Because we are going second, that's the reason that I am being as aggressive as possible with this particular build, as you can see from my previous updated build of this particular deck. Then, because we are going second, we've got triple Nibiru. Now, this actually serves multiple purposes, for the pure fact that it is a light and it is a high level, so that when you give your opponent a token, just being able to go, okay, normal summon Albaz, ditch a card, fuse with their token, straight away gives you the access to other monsters. It does give you instant access into your Titaniclad, because it makes it a bit of a boss monster. I believe so anyway. I believe it triggers using the attack on the field. And then Albion the Branded Dragon lets you summon out an additional level 8 or lower fusion monster from the extra deck. So that then allows you to use your graveyard. So as long as you've got something in there, you get 2 fusion monsters off of a single normal summon. So that's why Nibiru is very important. Then, because we're updated, we're going for the Kaijus, we're purely going second. We've got the Wind Barrier statue to get you out of the barrier lock that can come from stuff like the Flunderees. It can also come from stuff like the Bird Up, which is basically now making a resurgence through the new support. You've then got Raiden that helps kind of contribute towards your Super Poly plays as well as your Despia plays. And then you've got your Thunder King or Lightning Strike, which again helps you contribute towards your Despia plays because it's a light, but it also helps you contribute towards your Albaz plays because it's a light, a high level, and it's got a lot of attack. So you're getting the best of everything with this. And because we're only playing 3, we're playing 2 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. There's just too much that you can kind of do with this. For the fact that you just take away the stress, you don't need to worry about drop leads, you don't need to worry about hand traps, you just sit back, you let your opponent play, and then once they've made their play, you go, right, cool, let's go. And then you'd go Kaiju, Interrupted Slumber, or Interrupted Slumber, get rid of, for example, in a Tri-Brigade list, or in a Sword Soul, if the Sword Soul don't put up the Baroness, and even if they put up the Baroness, they still need to negate the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and if you have a second one, as long as they negate the activation, you get to activate it again. Or you Kaiju the Baron, then Slumber, they're going to pretty much lose their entire board. Yes, if they've got the level 10 Sovereign, then they'll be able to protect it, but other than that, you're still clearing their board of possibly 2 to 3 interruptions, and then being able to continue to play. Obviously with Flunderees as well, that lets you clear off the Flunderees, and then you're not normal summoning, you're only special summoning, so it won't trigger the map, so it will then be dependent on what they have. in their hand and in their back row. Now, as an alternative option to this, if you've got access to them, you could play the double equestria. But the way I kind of saw it was, the equestria is really good for going first, because you would then do all of your normal plays, normal summon the equestria, and then trigger equestria during your opponent's turn to tag her out. And then when you tag her out, she'll then turn into an Albaz, which in theory then means that Albaz becomes a discard to Super Poly during your opponent's turn. Now, that's a really cool interaction. I've got no issues with it whatsoever. I just kind of felt that it wasn't as it wasn't as necessary in this particular build, because it's focused on going second. I can very easily put the fusion deployments in, because I'm not going to be special summoning from the extra deck apart from one monster that isn't a fusion. Deployment is just so good, because it basically means that I have 5 copies of Albaz, and it means that if I don't need to commit my normal summon to Albaz, it can be used to go into an Alba. So I activate fusion deployment, bring out my Albaz, discard a card from the hand, super poly with a monster on my opponent's board, and then go into any of my monsters. And then off of the back of that, that's when I can continue to make my play. Worst case scenario, I can also use Alba to bait stuff out and then activate deployment, and just kind of build it and go from there. The best draw card in this entire deck is Allure of Darkness. Now, the reason this is so good is because if you banish Tragedy, you don't neg. So you literally go Allure of Darkness, banish Tragedy, Tragedy triggers, gives you the card that you've now just banished. So that will then give you your Alba, the drama, the ad, whatever you need. So Allure is absolute must in this deck, so good. Triple branded opening. Now, the best thing about this particular card is the discard is not a cost, it is part of the effect. So that is why the synergy with Shadows is so good, because you activate this, your opponent then needs to go, right, do I ash this or not? And they go, no. You go, right, cool, resolve, send in a Shadow. The Shadow effect will then trigger on a new chain, meaning you then get a monster. This again locks you into fusion summoning, but to make life easier, you just don't care. Because there's only one monster in your extra deck that is not a fusion monster, you pretty much just go, yeah, I'm not really that fussed about being locked into fusions. And off the back of that, its graveyard effect is, like, a lot of people forget it, but the graveyard effect is amazing. So you get to protect a fusion monster by being destroyed by card effect. So you just get banished from the graveyard. So if people forget about this, they go, right, okay, cool. Activate like Dark Hole Regeki or something like that to get rid of Tax Dragon, and by Tax Dragon I mean the Masquerade Dragon, and just go, yeah, cool, you paid 600 life points already, and then banish Branded, and it's not getting destroyed. So such a good card, and again it gives you access to Albaz's, it gives you access to the dramas and the ads, so that should you want to fusion them off, you bring them back in attack, they just become more aggressive. Then we've got the brand new one. I love this card. This card's so good. So it's called Branded in Red. It is searchable. You target one Despia monster or Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Then you can apply the following effect. Fusion summon one level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your hand or field. So you get to pretty much, it can't attack directly this turn, which doesn't really matter, but if you do it during your opponent's turn, you just get another Tax Dragon, so they get rid of it, you go, right, cool, here's another Masquerade Dragon, burn, burn, burn. If not, then during your opponent's turn you can go into an Albion, and then you get to build from there. You can go to a Titaniclad, you can even go into a Quinteris. Like, you just have so many different options, it's mad. And the fact that, again, it adds back one of the materials on activation, it's just absolutely bonkers for the pure fact that it just goes, yeah, cool, have this back. I think the only downside is that you target the monster in the graveyard as cost. So if your opponent goes yeet and gets rid of it, then you're kind of like, that's a bit of annoying, but it's still pretty cool. Then we've got what is a pain in the backside to deal with, is double super poly. Like, you have so many targets, like, and what I mean by this is, as long as your opponent's playing lights or darks, they are pretty much boned, because all of your cards pretty much let you rip through that. Not to mention that stuff like Branded in Glory is a Fallen of Albaz plus a level 8 or higher. Albion is a light monster. Titaniclad is a monster with 2500 or more attack. So you can pretty much cover a lot of the basis. And it also lets you get rid of some of your opponent's boss monsters. So you look at stuff like Dragoon, you look at stuff like Destroy a Phoenix Enforcer. Super Poly just goes, yeah, whatever, clear it up, let's go. Then we've got two of the Theatre, and then finishing off with the one Harpies Feather Duster and the one Gold Sark. Now, Gold Sark can very easily be Foolish Burial, it doesn't really matter too much. They're both there to trigger off Tragedy. And then the Duster is just because we needed back row out. This is currently a 42 card deck. If you wanted to really cut it down, you could cut out the Gold Sark if you wanted to. You could even put in a terraforming. But I felt like this deck needed some back row hate, which is why I've gone with Feather Duster. Throughout testing, if I feel that back row is becoming more of a prominent issue, that's when I'll then go for more back row hate. But at the moment, it's kind of a balance. It's like, right, okay, well, if I Duster, I'm going to hit a Revolt, and they're going to chain it anyway. If I Duster, I'm going to hit a Blackout, which is fine. As long as I don't put any cards on the board, they can't trigger it. And it's basically trying to look at stuff like that. If your locals becomes more controlled, that's where you probably want to put in stuff like Twin Twisters, and you want to kind of try and put in more back row hate that you can deal with as a quick effect than as a just normal spell card. So that's it for the main deck lineup. Now let's move on to the extra deck. So we'll start off with the brand new card, and that is of course Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. This card is awesome. I absolutely love this card. It's been officially nicknamed Tax Dragon. I don't know where it's come from, but from our group it came from Charlie, so shout out to him on that one. It requires a Despia plus a light or dark monster, so very, very easy to make. This is basically the new one you make rather than Quintero. While you control this fusion summon card, your opponent must pay 600 life points to activate cards or effects. If your opponent controls a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monster while this card is in the graveyard, quick effect, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. Only use the effect once per turn. So again, it gives you free materials back as long as your opponent controls a monster from the extra deck. Now, why this is so good, it's probably a little bit better going first, is for the pure fact that it makes them pay before resolution. So, activate Imperm, pay 600, then negate. Fine, you've already paid 600. Activate anything else just to kind of try and trigger, and then you're just going to burn. And before you know it, the amount of effects that are activated in general, just for them to try and build a board or to try and out this, is massive. Now, yes, okay, Imperm straight away knocks it out for the low cost of 600 life points, but then it's baited out an Imperm. It then gives your opponent a dilemma because you do have other fusion materials that will be on the board that will then be able to control and give your opponent a lot of issues. So, such a good card. Really, really glad that we got it. And like I said, it's probably a little bit better going first. You're probably not going to be summoning this out going second as much because you're just going to go aggressive and go for your stuff like your Quintero. But that really comes down to playstyle, but you're definitely going to want this in the deck regardless. Like, at no point will I ever go, yeah, I wish I didn't have this in my extra deck. Double Quintero, so we already pretty much know about this. It has a quick effect to reduce all monsters' attack except level 8 or higher fusion monsters to 0. So you need to be able to trigger this at the right time, otherwise it will affect your board as well, so you need to be very, very careful. And then it does have a nice little grave effect that lets it spin back. So if this card, if a face-up card in your owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can add to your hand or special summon one Fawn of Albaz or Despia monster from your deck. So it does give you a bit of recursion in that census. We've then got the one Pro Skeleton. So again, it's just a little bit easier to make. It's probably a little bit easier in the Despia version because you just pump out more lights. But again, this is a reason where you're giving your opponent light monsters, or you're going to be able to produce light monsters to summon it out. For your Super Poly targets, you've got the one Dracus de Pelio, the one Swamp, Mud Dragon of the Swamp, and the one Starving Venom. Pretty straightforward on that one. For our Albaz, we've got the one Bridglade, we've got the one Albion, and we've got the one Titaniclad. This is pretty much all you need. Like, we're not heavily focused on Albaz, and they still need a fusion monster that absolutely breaks it, which I'm hoping we're going to get in the structure deck. But Albion is your best one, Titaniclad is your boss one, and then Glory is one of the ones that you're going to summon off the back of Albion to give you protection. Then, of course, we do have the one First of the Dark Lords, which is just your boss monster. But like I said, if you fuse this with the right materials, you pretty much get all of the materials back. Because in theory, you will get all of them if you use free. Let's say you use Add, you use Drama, and you use, let's say, Tragedy, right? So you're going to trigger Add, which will let you special summon back Tragedy. You'll trigger Drama to summon itself back. You can then trigger First of the Dark Lord to bring back Add. So straight away, you've got a board of 4 monsters. Then Tragedy is going to search you out to get you your Albert anyway, so you just gain everything back, which is absolutely mad. And then the Destiny Hero package, some that a lot of you might not see coming. So we've got the one Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, and then the one Destiny Hero Dystopia. Now, the reason this is so good is it requires 2 Destiny Hero monsters, so there are ways of trying to banish him from the graveyard to summon him out. Because you then have the ability, if you've already made, for example, your Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, your Albion then gives you the ability of making the Dystopia, which is really kind of cool. So this one gives you the ability of level 8 or lower. Let me just double check this one. Yeah, cool. I was like, why does it look like a 9? Yeah, so then this will then give you the ability of banishing Celestial. Yeah, you don't get a draw, but if you've already got this on board and then you activate this, you banish Celestial, banish Dasher, get you this. This then becomes the ability to burn if you go an alternative route, and what I mean by that is if you're coming close to time, not saying you want to drag out to get into time, but if you get dragged into time and your opponent's like, yeah, Despias don't have a burn, you go, you know what, Fusion Destiny, Dystopia target Celestial, burn for 800, cool. Alternatively, if you wanted to, you could take out Dasher and you could put in the other level 6, which basically lets you banish it to target a Destiny hero you control and increases attack, which then means that this becomes gets a free pop. So it's just something that I added in last minute as a kind of like alternative contingency. And it seems to have worked out quite nicely. Alternatively, you could go back to the Mask Change 2 option, and you could take out some of the cards in the extra deck so that you could main deck some of the Shadow cards for the Dogmatica package. It really depends on your side deck and your future plays going forward on how you want to kind of play it and utilize it. And then the final card is Ding, because stuff like Albion, as long as I'm not locked into fusions at that particular point, he gives me instant access to Ding, which gives me instant access to Destruction Protection and a free send. Alternatively, you get Dramaturge on the board plus any of your fusions, gives you a Ding. But like I said, there's loads of flex spots in this extra deck that you can kind of take it out, play around with and change it up a little bit. So it's entirely up to you down to play style and the play route that you want to take it. But I still feel that this deck has a lot to kind of offer and does give your opponent a bit of a surprise. But like I said, the best thing about this particular deck right now is it has so many different playable options, and all of them have their own massive bonuses, and obviously they do have their own weaknesses. So for this particular version, the bonus is the fact that it goes second, your opponent has no idea what you're playing, you just go, yeah, cool, breakboard, let's go game. If you look at the Dogmatica package, the Dogmatica package gives you a lot more options going first. If you look at the Shadow package, they just have a lot more synergy, a lot more fusion monsters, and a lot more kind of controlled plays. And then you look at the Invoked engine. The Invoked engine just gives you a Alistair go brrr, give you a Macabre to protect everything you do going forward. Anyway, I hope you like this version. I hope it's given you an update for your own particular build. If you want to be central focused on round Fallen of Albaz, then this is one way of doing it. If you like go second decks, this is the best route for you to kind of take. Otherwise, just use it as a structure to adapt and build your own version onto and kind of go from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. Till next time guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.
Yeah.